sir.
And we are live with another edition of SEC Tavern Talk. And yes, it's and football is getting crazy. I'm joined by my co-host Rob McNew. Rob, what is going on, my man?
It's good to have you back, JB. Missed you on last week's podcast. You too, Wes.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, and if you can't hear, that's our long-haired friend Wes Newborn, who is still currently a guest on the show.
I'm a regular contributor.
A regular contributor, yeah.
What would Facebook call that?
Huh?
I said, what would Facebook call that? Because they have like rising stars and
missing
star,
context.
Yeah. Well, like they all, like on Fox News, they'll say, "This is a Fox News contributor, such and such." So that's what you are. You're a Tavern Talk contributor.
That's fair. I'll take it.
That's okay. Instead of a guest, I guess that could be a step up from a guest. Okay, I'm derailing. Let's move on to Rob. What is on tap for today's Tavern Talk?
You know we always start with recaps.
No, really?
I don't know. Do you want to recap our game?
I haven't been on in so long, man. I don't know. I don't remember what we do. No. Do I want to recap? No, I do not want to recap. I didn't even want to finish watching it, but I did because it's my team.
I'll say this for that game. I had no love or respect lost for Sam Pittman or the Hogs. Despite the result of that game, I'm not like most of the fans right now saying Arkansas is overrated, they're blah, blah. I still think they're a really good team. I still think they'll finish at least third in the West. I don't take anything away from them. They're just, they run the 3-3-5 defense to take away the long pass. Georgia just took what they gave them and ran on them all day.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little surprised that it was 37-0, but I knew that the game had the potential for that. Because I made no bones about it. I tried really hard to not be a Homer fan, but Georgia's dang good this year. Like, Lester, I'm just seeing something that's not there, but they have all the signs of being really good this year, and the defense is probably the best defense in the country to me. It may be one of the best defenses I've ever seen. I saw some comparing it to 2011 Alabama defense. You can say what you want about that. I'm just saying, I'm not necessarily doing that. I'm just saying I saw someone compare it to that. I think Arkansas Ole Miss is going to be an interesting game. I'm not going to make a pick on that yet, obviously. But I think that the West is Alabama, Ole Miss, and Arkansas, and then a drop-off. I think those teams are talented. So despite the 37-0 win, I don't have anything lost for Arkansas there.
Yeah, and I'll say this: there are a lot of people outside of the conference that don't completely understand, but like in a group that shall not be named, somebody had mentioned about number 8 in the country getting smoked right now, saying that they were overrated, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, let's just forget about the fact that they played the best defense in the country, and that their starting quarterback was really banged up and was a game time decision, but they went with him anyway, so he wasn't 100%. And like, there was just so many factors. The fact that it was away, But then I said, if somebody if that same thing happened to, Ohio State or Notre Dame or whatever, um, it happens all the time. I've seen it happen to Clemson. I've seen it happen to Ohio State. And yeah, we think they're overrated because we've always thought they were overrated. But that in and of itself doesn't make you overrated. You know what I'm saying? It's just there's a lot of factors in it. But also, it could also mean that the committee got it right with just having the top four playoff system because there seems to be a pretty big drop off after the top four teams. Um, we played the number 2 team in the nation and they beat the pants off of us. Are we a top 10 contender? Maybe. I don't know. We certainly beat the pants off of Texas, who has just been destroying people ever since. I say the same thing about derailed A&M season, to be honest. I think they're a lot better team than Mississippi State, in my opinion. Anyway, I have no. I'm kind of indifferent to it. I did not expect it to be that kind of a blowout. However, I did expect for us to lose, even though I picked them. I picked them. I picked them because of my heart. It was kind of like, I felt like we did have a chance to win, so I would hate to win, and I would rather pick them and lose than not pick them and win. You know what I'm saying? Actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. I would rather win. But I would kick myself if we won and I didn't pick them. So,
well, something we were talking about last week when Hansel was on, that there is more parity this year than we've seen in a long time, and I don't mean from, I think there's some clear, at least right now, some clear top teams, but you don't see, Ohio State's not what they usually are, and Oklahoma's not as good as they usually are. You don't really know. The only two that you're really like, hey, they're making the playoffs right now, in theory, is Alabama and Georgia. Those are the two that everyone's thinking right now. People are saying Oklahoma, but I mean, we're not making a pick on this because it's not an SEC game. Because sorry to our guys in the tavern, but the Red River crap out is not SEC game. So I think Texas is going to win that game. Sorry, JB. It's not a fan vote. I'm just saying I think they're going to win that game. I think Oklahoma's got a lot of issues this year. Texas is not terrible. I'm not going to say they're good, but Arkansas stuck it to them, which we all enjoyed, most of us. But I do think there's more parity this year, and you're not sure of what. So it makes it hard to pick games, but there's a little more excitement this year, I think. I picked Kentucky to win last week. Most people didn't. I was high on them from the very beginning of the year. I think their biggest problem is turnovers. They didn't do that against Florida. They were equal on turnovers, 1-1. Whether as they were -9 before Florida. So that's their biggest issue. But anyway, my point is this is an interesting year. I'm enjoying it. Although I find it really funny that a lot of the people that are saying dogging Arkansas or saying they're overrated, or SC fans and your, all the teams that all the fans that are the teams that are relevant. So,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, to me, that's what's really funny. Like Auburn fans even or dogging Arkansas. I'm like, you're gonna get beat down by Arkansas, so shut up. I mean, and you're also going to get beat down this Saturday, so, but not like I'm making a pick or anything. But speaking of Tennessee, can we just talk about how ridiculous their fans have been, acting like they're not still a complete dumpster fire. Like you beat Missouri. Woohoo! Way to go! You must be back. Oh wait, no, you're not Texas. Like they're still a dumpster fire. They're still low down. There's still some snitches. Like
That was a weird beatdown that I was not expecting, to be honest. Though,
what?
huh?
What weren't you expecting?
I mean, I thought Missouri would win the game, or at
Oh,
least
you meant yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody expected Tennessee to beat them that badly. Sorry, I didn't realize where you're going with that.
yeah, they beat them by 40 points almost. My gosh, like I did not see that one coming.
Well, I don't think anybody did, but I think I thought Missouri was better than they are, but at the same time, like Tennessee's kind of like we got nothing to lose at this point. I think because everyone expects them to suck, whereas people were actually thinking Mizzou might be good, but Mizzou has lost to how many teams now? I think they lost. So they're second or third. That's what I thought. And then they lost to Kentucky.
And then Boston College
Who else
the week before.
Boston College. Yeah, that's right. So is that 3 weeks in a row?
No, they beat Southeast Missouri State in between there.
So I think they're just
Not good.
yes, but I also think they're just like, well, I tried more this year, and I think Tennessee at this point is like, we got nothing to lose. We're a bunch of underdogs that no one thinks is going to do anything, so let's just go out there and have fun. And they did. They had a lot of fun, obviously, because they put up 62 points, which no one saw, except for one person in the tavern, which I won't name on this podcast, but
Yeah, we won't name.
we all know who it is.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's all I can say about that. It's just, I'm going to laugh when Tennessee fans get up and high and mighty, and then they face the rest of the schedule and didn't look good for them. So,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to them getting knocked off their. I would say high horse, but I mean sawhorse. That's kind of what they're on. Like they're like they don't really have anything to sit on because they haven't done anything in 20 years. So yeah, we'll just knock them off their sawhorse. Wes, do you have anything to share about your barn burner of a game in Tuscaloosa this past week?
I'm fresh out of popcorn. I had it ready for Saturday, and turns out it was a good time to have popcorn ready because that was fun if you're a Bama fan. But in all seriousness, I was more impressed by Brian Robinson than I have in a while. I don't think that Alabama is a great team at this point. I think we've just gelled and had some really good games, if that makes sense. Like Brian Robinson, for example, I look at him and I think Bo Scarborough almost, right? Jace McClellan is like almost Damian Harris. So we've got guys that remind me of great running backs that we've had, but they're just not at that level yet. We don't have the same stable of receivers that we've had. Mechie's good, really good. Slade Bolden is okay. Jamison Williams is fantastic when you get him in open space, but he hasn't been as productive, say, with the crossing routes and some of the slants like we used to see out of Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, those guys. So I think we're progressing, and to have a game as dominant as we did last week, as early in the season as it is a good sign. But that said, we got a long way to go. To your point about the parity, Rob, I'd look at the rankings, and it really reminds me of was it 2004 when it was USC and Oklahoma wire to wire 1 and 2. Like if you look from 3 to 10 in the top 10, if Alabama or Georgia is playing any of those teams next week, I don't think any of them is less than a double-digit favorite in those games. And I don't think anybody would be surprised if Alabama beat the pants off of Penn State or Georgia whooped Iowa on a neutral field. Right, and you can go right down the list because you either have really good teams that have been inconsistent, so like your Iowas and Penn States that are up there in the mix, but we haven't seen them there in years, or you've got teams that have been there but haven't done enough to stay, like Ohio State losing to Oregon, those kinds of teams. So I think the parity really is going to set the stage for a team like Cincinnati ultimately to crash the party later on. And quite frankly, I kind of worry as it gets down to Alabama and Georgia at the end of the season. Even if we're able to get there undefeated, both teams, like what does that do for the postseason? If like that is the ultimate, like there's no disputing these two are the best two teams in the country, and if it gets that way in December, what kind of momentum can either team, the winner or the loser, take into the 4-team playoff, presuming both of them get in? But I like what I've seen now out of Alabama so far. I think we've got some room to grow. I'm not 100% sold, but sold enough to take them the rest of the way, that's for sure.
So what I'll say to that is, when I'm talking about parity, I meant like not necessarily with everybody as far as with Georgia and Alabama. I just meant like the rest of the teams that fill out the top 10, top 15. If you don't know who is really what, because you got current rankings, but those are based on what the preseason ranking started and who's moved up based on the current games played.
Right.
So, but you just don't know. You see flashes from Cincinnati. You see Notre Dame sucking more than they usually do, which is enjoyable. But you don't really know who else is going to make it. But as far as like Georgia and Alabama, my fear is this. I heard it said today, and makes so much sense to me. Okay, let's just assume Georgia and Alabama make the SEC championship together. That's the assumption we're going on because that's what makes sense at this point.
Right.
Just saying. Georgia wins. Alabama still goes to the playoff. Pretty sure that happens because they're Alabama. But if Georgia loses in the SEC championship, does Georgia still go to the playoff?
I think so.
Not should they, but do they? The committee has shown, and I'm not saying that Alabama hasn't. I mean, Alabama gets this because of the program they are, but they have shown a more of a bias to put Alabama in with a loss versus an unbeaten team because they're Alabama, which granted they're the winningest program in history. So I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I'm just saying that they may not award that to someone else who should be as well. I think that as it stands today, you can't deny those are the two best teams in the country. They could change, opinions could change, all that. But as of right now, I don't think anybody's that's really thinking about it is not putting them as the top 2 teams.
I think the question is how many undefeated teams are there at the end of the season? If there are 4 undefeated teams, conference champions, I think they all get in. Period. Like I don't think they're going to leave an undefeated Penn State out or an undefeated Cincinnati or Iowa. So they're not Power 5, but they beat Notre Dame, which everybody thinks is great, but they're not that great. But like, it's theirs for the taking. I mean, they can coast to the playoffs as long as they just be who the rest of the teams on their schedule. They got SMU, And Temple is a good team. UCF, I don't know if they're good this year or not.
No.
But Temple and SMU are both tough teams. But I mean, they should be able to beat them. So like, I don't see any of the top, like Oklahoma. If Oklahoma runs the table, I don't think they will. But if they're undefeated, now if you're sitting there with, Alabama undefeated, an undefeated, Penn State and Cincinnati, and then you've got a bunch of one-loss teams, I think Georgia sneaks back in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because especially if they have a good showing against Alabama, and especially if some of the teams that Georgia beats on their way there has a good season. Like if Arkansas goes on to, win 8-9 games, and Florida, doesn't crap the bed. Well, I'm saying like all the teams that Georgia beats this of the year, like it's all it's gonna do is boost their resume, and so the odds are they're both going to get in because odds are you're not going to have 4 undefeated teams at the end of the year.
Well, see, that's what scared me because I think, okay, you got Penn State and Iowa playing this week, for instance. One of those is going to lose, right? Chances are they're probably going to be playing each other again in the Big Ten championship, which means the other one's probably going to get an L because the loser is probably going to win that rematch. Which then puts both of them with one loss. I guarantee you Oklahoma's going to lose a game. Whether it's Texas or someone else, I don't think they run the table this year.
Michigan's still going to lose to Ohio State.
Probably.
What's funny about Michigan, though? What's funny about Michigan is, historically, they've always been college football, but now we're in week 6, and they're 5-0, and they've beaten people pretty handily, and they've beaten good teams like Wisconsin and I think Washington.
Yeah.
But they're sitting there just barely in the top 10, and they're ranked 9th because the voters finally understand that Michigan is never going to be elite under Jim Harbaugh. So they're just waiting. They're just waiting for him to lose. So they're just keeping him right there at the corner of the top 10. I know you're 5-0. You've beat some good teams, but we're not just going to put you up there. We're going to put Iowa and Penn State and Ohio State with one loss ahead of you out of your own conference. So it's hilarious.
Well, what scares me is that scenario happening with all those teams getting an L, and then so you get Cincinnati in there because I have a feeling they'll probably run the table and make the playoffs. I think at this point, depending on the resumes, I think they have a strong chance, if undefeated, to get in, especially with the way it is today. But I'm afraid if Georgia wins the SEC championship, then I'm afraid all hopes for a national championship go out the window. Because I am not confident Georgia can beat Alabama twice. And that's what I fear, is that we'll win the SEC championship and then lose in the national championship. Which would just be like the biggest excitement for the biggest letdown.
Yeah. Well, what I could reasonably see, if it stays the way it has been, and we could go to the extreme of saying, regardless of what else happens, Alabama and Georgia win the rest of their games by double digits, like 2-3 touchdowns. No matter who they play, that's just the way it is. And then in December, if you have something like we had at the end of the 2018 season, right, where if Bama mounts the comeback in the fourth quarter and wins, I think even in that situation, the capital that Georgia will have built up over the course of the season would very likely keep them in the top 4, especially with stats like 23 points in 5 games. I've heard that goes back to 1937 since they've had a defense that stingy with points. I mean, insane. Now, if you add on top of that, if Clemson rebounds, which is still a ways out, but if Clemson rebounds and wins the ACC again, and at the end of the season you're looking at maybe a top 12 Clemson team that's an ACC champ, and Georgia just lost a conference championship to Alabama, has that kind of win over a top 10 program, right? I think that's going to count in their favor when the committee comes together, because you'll have teams like Cincinnati, who maybe their best win is over a Notre Dame team, which is floating somewhere around 15, right? And oh, by the way, Notre Dame doesn't play for a conference championship this year because it's not a COVID-impacted season, right? So Cincinnati's going to have some problems there. I think really if BYU continues to if BYU finishes undefeated, I think they pass Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnati's going to be a problem for any of the top 4 teams, honestly. I think they've hit the Boise State ceiling. I don't see them getting any higher than 5th unless just complete chaos reigns and continues through the rest of the season. If we have like a 2007 type issue where number 2 teams are losing back to back to back to unranked teams just on a rotating basis, and then conference championship weekend, everything falls apart. And I think that was the year 2-loss LSU got to play for the national title in the BCS. Like, it would take something like that for Cincinnati to jump ahead. And I'm with y'all. I don't see any of the other Power 5 teams finishing undefeated. I just don't have enough faith in the consistency of any of them. Right? And so...
Well, the thing is, the only one I could conceivably see happening would be Iowa, because they play in the weaker part of the Big Ten. Because Penn State has to play Michigan and Ohio State. I guess Iowa does have to play Penn State, so they'd have to, get past that. But then after that, they can pretty much coast. I mean, Wisconsin is not that good this year. Of course, they could give them a run for their money, but they've got a pretty good schedule ahead of them. So I could conceivably see Iowa as an undefeated team at the end of the year. But they, like I said, they have to get past 2 Big Ten East teams, one in Penn State and one in the championship game. So I think they have the best chance. Oklahoma, I don't see Oklahoma being undefeated. Even if they beat Texas this weekend, I see them screwing something up at some point down the road. Like, it always happens, and it might be against the worst team in the Big Ten, but they'll do it. Like, I don't understand like how it's because they never have a defense. I guess I don't know.
It almost happened with Kansas State over the weekend.
Exactly. Let's don't forget about Tulane either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just you're right. I don't see any of these teams being undefeated. BYU, you're probably right about them because the Mountain West is significantly stronger than the AAC, in my opinion.
BYU's independent.
That's right. They are independent.
Yeah,
that's right. But they play a lot. They play a lot of Mountain West teams, though.
I don't know. The next 4 weeks, they've got Boise State at home. Then they go to Baylor, to Washington State, and then Virginia comes home, and they finish the season at USC. So that's
okay. So they've got a heck of a schedule. Yeah. So if they win out, yeah, they're in easily. But that's a rough schedule to
that's
win
a big
out
if.
With. That's a big if. Man, wouldn't it be funny if they won out except they lost to somebody like Georgia Southern? That's just
wow.
That would be the Mormon thing to do. Let's
so wrong.
What else we got? Let's go over the this past week.
Oh yeah, we started with that, never finished.
As we discussed, Arkansas, Georgia win 37-0. But that's the last. Tennessee beats Missouri in Columbia 64. South Carolina beats Troy from down in South Alabama 23-14. Alabama beats Ole Miss 42-21. Kentucky beats Florida in a beautiful fashion 20-13. I'll be honest. I was kind of hoping Kentucky would win this game, and it was getting down to the nitty gritty, and I thought that Florida was going to tie it up there at the end. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, man, if this goes to overtime, Florida wins this game. Period.
Mm-hmm.
They've got historically they're built better. I think if it comes to a shootout, I think Florida wins this game. So I was really happy that Kentucky won it in regulation.
Real quick, shout out to Kentucky there. Did y'all watch the end of the game? Were you able to see the end of it?
Yeah, I watched it.
8 plays inside the 10, and Kentucky held.
Yeah.
That is insane. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. Whenever they had held them, and then they had that penalty as a pass interference penalty.
Gave them 4 more downs.
Just like,
come on.
That's what I keep trying to tell people. People won't listen to me. That's a good team. Yeah. They just keep making stupid mistakes. Yeah. It's mental errors. It's in little things that they just need to clean up. The sloppiness is all they need to clean up. If they do that, I mean, it's a really good football team. I've said it, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, that Stoops is an underrated coach.
Oh, 100% underrated. Yeah. I could see them sitting here at the end of the year with 1 loss. How amazing would that be?
I told one of our Tennessee fans in the tavern they could easily win 10 or 11 games if everything goes right. And he's like, oh, there's no way. They're Kentucky. They'll always beat Kentucky. They can't win more than 8 games ever. I'm like, they have.
Let's say the same thing about Tennessee.
You know what? Your Tennessee, your Philip Fulmer days are over. You're never getting back to that. Ever, ever, ever. Stop thinking that you are. I'm done with Tennessee. They're never going. They're never coming back. Anyway.
Well, it drives me crazy because I'm like, you say that just because you don't like them and because you've beaten them in the past. They're showing you right in front of your face and you watch them. They're a good team. That's what I tried to make the case that when your turnover margin is -9, you can be really good and lose games.
Yeah.
So the fact that they barely beat Chattanooga, to me, they still lost the turnover battle. I can't even talk there.
No, I was talking about Tennessee.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like, the criticism of Kentucky, if people actually watch the game that they're playing, Will Levis is playing well. Chris Rodriguez is freaking insane. That defense is pretty good.
The defense is really good. like you said.
And they have a good offense. Like, they've got some talent there. It's a good football team. So
Absolutely.
I would not be surprised if, like I said at the beginning of the year, I think they could probably finish the second in the East, and I still hold to that.
Yeah, and
who do they have left to stop other than Georgia?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not far fetched to think that they could, like I said, be sitting here at the end of the year and having 1 loss against Georgia.
Yeah.
Because honestly, they are better than everybody else that they're going to play. Like, if they do have another loss, it's because they screwed themselves.
Yeah.
And then we got Mississippi State beats Texas A&M 26-22.
Yeah.
I don't know about A&M these days, man. I think they're just. I think we broke their spirit. That's all I can say. Like, I just. They had this edge beating us 8 years in a row, and then we finally broke that. And I'm telling you, it's not going to be another 8 years in a row. Just saying, it's going to get back to normal. It's going to get back to Arkansas dominating A&M like we always have. Anyway, Next, we've got Vandy. Vandy beats UConn, who hasn't won a game all year. And
Why
who
start
knows
now?
when? Yeah, why start now? I don't. Who knows when the last time they actually won a game was? I mean, I'm not going to look back at last season, but I'd be venture to say that they probably lost their last 4 or 5 last year. So anyway, they probably have a streak longer than Alabama's winning streak. Uh,
They're the Northwestern of the '90s.
okay, here's the question: which one's harder to do? To go undefeated or to go 0-12?
Oof.
Well, ask Kansas Jayhawks and then ask Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think as many times as we've seen it happen, what Florida International did it about a decade or so ago. UConn did it a few years ago. I think that's why Randy Edsall found his way out the door. Temple, I think it was close to it if they didn't go over. I think there's probably been 5 or 6 over teams in the last, say, dozen years or so, dozen and a half.
So it makes you think that it's easier to win every all of your games than it is to lose all of them.
Yeah,
Because like if you're really trying, like you're gonna mess around and win one game.
yeah.
Because you hardly ever see people going 0-12. You see people going undefeated every year.
Blind squirrel.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly, blind squirrel. So anyway, Vandy beats UConn by 2 points. I'm sorry, if you're beating a team that's 0-5 by 2 points, you just don't deserve to be in the SEC or any respectable conference. Auburn.
Hey, man, they're only like 14 years removed from a BCS bowl.
That's true. 14 years?
Yeah, something.
It hasn't been that long.
No, it's a what, 08, 09, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Close.
Anyway, and then lastly, we've got Auburn beating LSU. And I didn't watch this game, but apparently Bo Nix just played completely out of his head. Like,
Yep.
I've heard people compare him to Johnny Football, and I'm like, what?
No. The comparison is Bo Nix is either Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M or Johnny Manziel at the Cleveland Browns. There is no in between. That's how this works.
Okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Did you watch it, Wes? Your wife is an Auburn fan,
Yeah,
I assume so.
I dozed off. I was tired. I was out running errands and working a lot Saturday, but when I sat down and watched it, I would wake up and see a little bit of a drive, and I actually saw right after that play happen live. Like the celebration on the TV is what woke me up, and I was like, huh, what? Oh, dude, he really did that. Huh? Is that Bo Nix? Same guy who got benched last week? Okay. I guess that's a thing now. And then it was 19-10, and I was in the fourth quarter, and I was thinking, no, they don't have it. And I just closed my eyes and woke up the next morning. I've got texts go, hey, did you see the end of the game? I was like, no, but apparently I was wrong. Auburn won. What do you know?
I thought you picked Auburn.
Oh, I did.
Okay,
But when I was actually watching it, and it's 19-10 in the fourth quarter, and they haven't done much the entire second half, I'm thinking, well, we're done here.
Anyway, what's next, Rob? We're doing the Mad Hatter pick of the week.
Yeah. Before we go into picks in general, I think we pretty much kind of covered our thoughts on this, but how do y'all think the East and West are going to finish, like 1-7?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, I still think Alabama's going to finish tops in the West. I'm ready to rethink my preseason pick of Florida finishing at the top of the East. I think I'm officially ready to backtrack on that one.
It's a safe bet.
Yeah. I think probably the easiest one to pick right now, honestly, would be the West. And I think it's going to end up Alabama, Ole Ole Miss, Arkansas, then LSU, Mississippi State, and A&M. No, wait, I missed Auburn in there. I put Auburn about midway. So what? Alabama, Ole Miss, Arkansas. We'll put Auburn in there, and then LSU, Mississippi State, and A&M. That's how I see it playing out in the West. What about you, JB?
Depends on what happens this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I got Alabama number 1, obviously. Arkansas and Ole Miss play each other this weekend. They play in Oxford. So, really, even what happens this weekend might not even, tell us anything because, it's in Oxford. It could be a shootout. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I think Ole Miss plays to our strength on defense. I think we're better. I think our pass defense is a lot better than our run defense. The only thing that could hurt us would be Matt Corral's legs.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just because I'll go ahead and be a homer and say I'll put Arkansas at second, even if they lose this weekend, because I still think we've got 8 or 9 wins in us, and I think I can see Ole Miss, screwing something up down the road, So, and I'll put Ole Miss at third, and I guess I'm gonna have to put Auburn at fourth, and I'm gonna say, yeah, give me Mississippi State, and yeah, I'll say A&M. I'll say A&M bounces back, and then put LSU at the very bottom.
Now, LSU beat
that'd be
Mississippi
funny.
State head-to-head.
They did.
So you still think LSU is going to finish at the bottom of the West?
That's a good point. Mississippi State, their only claim to fame is beating A&M by 4.
Yep.
But LSU barely beat Mississippi State. So
Mississippi State
those 3
still got
teams.
Kentucky on the schedule too. They've got
Sure.
Kentucky,
Those
Arkansas,
3
and Ole Miss.
Listen, man, it's a pick 'em between Mississippi State, Texas A&M at the bottom. I'm sorry.
I think you're right.
Like I don't care who's at the bottom. One of those teams will be at the bottom for sure.
It's a raffle. It's like
East,
Tennessee, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt of old.
Exactly. And then in the East, yeah, I've got Georgia, and I'm going with Kentucky, man.
Yeah.
I think they finished strong. I think 10 wins is the floor for them. And that's if they don't find a way to beat themselves in another game. I think they get at least 10 wins this year. And then I'm gonna have to go to Florida because they're still Florida. Even though they're 1 and 2 in the SEC, they've lost to 2 really good teams in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm putting Florida at third, and then I'm going with South Carolina, and then Tennessee, and then Missouri, and then Vandy. I can't with Vandy, man. I can't.
So I'll say Georgia, Kentucky, Florida. Honestly, I think Tennessee's going to beat South Carolina, as much as I hate to say it. So I'm going to put them at 4. I still don't think they're good. I just think South Carolina's not that good either. So I'll say Georgia, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Missouri, Vanderbilt, and then Alabama, Ole Miss, Arkansas, although I can see that going the other way as well. Ole Miss and Arkansas are 2 and 3, one way or the other. And then I'll put, what the heck, let's go Mississippi State 4, LSU 5, A&M. Hold on, no.
You meant Mississippi State 5?
Hold on.
5, 6, and
He
7.
carried the
Georgia.
2.
No, I'm not. I am not putting Auburn fourth. I don't
It's the
care.
standard
Oh,
deviation.
I started at the beginning saying they were last in the West, or sixth or something like that. I'm not. No, I think.
Common Core.
Oh man, good grief. I'll put Mississippi State, Auburn, LSU. Still hard. That puts A&M last. I don't know if I think they're that bad.
The West is just
I
strong,
don't know.
man.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't. I just can't. I don't know who's going to win week to week. Like between those four, the top three are easy to pick. But
yeah, it's a very clear difference between the top three and the bottom four.
I
Like,
can't.
it's
I can't do
stark.
it.
True story.
I just can't. But anyway, let's move on from that because I can't do it. I just
I
can't.
didn't do my picks for the East Division, but I'll say Tennessee finishes at the bottom of the East. They beat Missouri. They won't win another conference game.
I hope you're right.
I like that pick.
The rest, I don't care how it shakes out. Tennessee's finishing in the cellar.
I really hope that's true. But let's move on to picks. Y'all got your Mad Hatters this week?
I do, and it's going to be an
Mad Hatter.
SEC game, so I'll break it out when we do regular picks.
Fair enough, JB.
Let me pull it back up.
Is yours
Oh,
an SEC game?
no, it's not.
Okay, neither.
Although I could say one, but I think Wes is going to pick the SEC game that I was thinking of. My Mad Hatter of the week is going to be Stanford. They're a 12-point underdog at Arizona State, who's ranked 22nd in the country. They're 4-1. Arizona State's a good team. They've had a good season. They just come off a big win against UCLA, and they've beaten BYU. So I mean, they're
Stanford came off a big win recently too, didn't they?
exactly that's my point. Stanford beat the number 3 team in the nation. So in overtime, like in a shootout victory against them. So I like them coming in with confidence. After I'm sorry, man, you just beat Oregon. Like that's some confidence right there. You're bringing that into the next, and it's only 6 days in between those games because they're playing on Friday night instead of Saturday. So, yeah, I really like Stanford in this game. Historically,
That was almost my pick. That's a good one, JB.
I'm
they
going
have,
with that one too, but are you
Yeah,
going with
it's-
them outright?
yeah, it's an outright win. Yeah, I think they, definitely cover the spread, but I think they win the game. So,
Isn't that the point of the Mad Hatter pick? You pick the super underdog to pull
It
the
is.
upset.
It is. Yes.
Yeah,
And I'm,
exactly.
I'm going with that as well. The only reason I asked
Pick
that
the
is because
same
I didn't
team.
make that. I had already picked that before you said that. But anyway, I've guessed.
You tell we've been doing this show together for a long time. We're picking the same games.
Stop interrupting me, guest.
I'm not a guest.
Not you.
Stop
Wes.
looking at me, Swan.
Stop looking at me, Swan. Anyway.
Oh, shampoo is better. Go on. Go ahead and finish with your reasons for picking Stanford. Go ahead.
Quote that whole scene. Anyway, I'm going to pick that game as well. The reason that I asked that question is because I didn't make that abundantly clear, I guess, because last week Hanson picked the favorite team not to cover. So,
Lame.
yeah. I guess I didn't make that
Not
clear
having him
enough.
back on the show anytime soon.
So I'm going to go Stanford with outright upset, and I agree. I think they're riding that hot streak or that confidence. And,
Show.
I think they get that done. Wes, we'll let you do yours while we make the picks. So let's roll right into that. Let's just do this a quick pick because we don't know who's going to win this game. Does Florida cover the 38 against Vandy?
Yes. Yes. It could be 83, and I'd probably still pick it.
West.
I think so. Yeah, after suffering the loss at Kentucky, they're going to be jonesing to get back, and pardon the pun, but Jones is going to be wanting to get back. I think they're going to go wild. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put 50, 60 points on Vandy and hold them to a goose egg.
Yep.
So Emory's going to be Jones, and yep. All right.
Yep.
Let's see. All right. South Carolina versus Tennessee. Tennessee.
You didn't tell us if you think Florida's going to cover.
Yeah, come on now.
No, I do. I thought that was given. But anyway. Wait,
Okay.
I thought I just said that. Anyway, maybe not. Whatever. I just kind of agreed with y'all, but yeah. Anyway, South Carolina goes to Knoxville to play in that awful stadium of Neyland.
Garbage truck worker convention.
If you
Neyland
sat-
Stadium.
Yeah, if you sat in there, you know how bad it is. Never been so crowded in my life. That's how they fit over 100,000 seats in there, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They crowd the living crap out of it. But anyway, South Carolina goes to Tennessee. Tennessee is a 10.5 point favorite. What do y'all think on this one?
I like South Carolina, man. I'm not gonna lie, I do. I think it's. I don't know, man. I think that huge victory at Mizzou was a flash in the pan. Because South Carolina, they played well against Kentucky. They beat Troy, which is historically a pretty daggum good team. Not necessarily this year. And then, they haven't really done a whole lot, but I still like them as a more complete team than Tennessee. I think Tennessee is just kind of playing out of their heads last week, and I don't see it happening again this week. They're coming back home to their home crowd, and I think they crapped the bed. So, Wes,
I figured this
what
was
about
going to
you?
be your Mad Hatter pick, and I took it in honor of McLeod, who couldn't be here today. I'm rooting for his Gamecocks to pull the upset. They're going to be my Mad Hatter pick. Tennessee starts the rest.
I was going to switch mine to that since you were complaining.
Well, to be fair, my backup or the one I was originally going to pick was Stanford over ASU, but I saw that South
That's
Carolina
hilarious.
was more than a 10-point dog, and I was like, that's the way I'm going to make it up to McLeod. I want to see the Gamecocks win a competitive game in conference away from home, and to shut the crowd up at Neyland Stadium would be fantastic. So give me the Cox.
Yeah, and I was originally going to pick Tennessee. What fun is that? No one wants to pick them.
I'll never pick Tennessee. Just across
Here's
the
the thing.
board. Doesn't matter.
Really funny thing to me. On our pick'em, Tennessee is a 95.21% favorite. Are you freaking kidding me?
Cool story, bro.
What? How? I'll take the less than 5% odds there because I don't believe that's the case. We're all going Gamecocks. Let's move on.
Yeah.
You know what? Hold on. I got to just back up for a second. Like, we spend a lot of time discussing football every week. And so I guess we kind of have very similar opinions, but I think it's hilarious that all three of us were going to pick between these two games to be our dogs, our Mad Hatters of the week. Because I was thinking South Carolina versus Tennessee, but I was like, no, I'm not going to make that my Mad Hatter because I bet Wes is going to do that because he hates Tennessee so much.
Yes.
And so I went ahead and made the other game. Plus, it's fun to do a non-SEC game, so I went ahead and did that. So, yeah, that's just hilarious that all three of us were looking at the exact same two games.
For real though, who doesn't hate Tennessee except for Tennessee fans?
That's pretty much true. Yeah.
I mean,
Fair.
like, this just they lied at it. But anyway, let's move on.
They like to brag about beating us in 1998 when literally we tripped over a piece of grass and lost the game.
Grass
They
monkey.
didn't beat us. Like, they did not beat us. We crapped the bed and they took advantage. Like, Anyway, whatever. Let's go. Move on.
All right. So North Texas plays at Mizzou. Missouri's a 19-point favorite. What do y'all think on this game? Does Mizzou bounce back?
As long as North Texas doesn't do any fake punt return things, I think Mizzou bounces back and wins and covers the 19-point spread. I think they're mad after last week. I don't think they're going to be like down in the dirt like Texas A&M was last week. I think they come out and take care of business at home. So it's probably their homecoming, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, why wouldn't you schedule North Texas at home?
I don't know. Think who Tennessee scheduled. Or no, Vanderbilt. They scheduled Georgia.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going Mizzou, and I say they cover.
I'm going to say Mizzou wins, but they don't cover. North Texas has had some pretty bad games, but last week they played a pretty good La Tech team close to a one-touchdown loss. And quite frankly, I don't know what's going on with Missouri, but after getting bludgeoned by a dumpster fire, I just don't have any faith in them to win a game by more than 2 touchdowns.
Okay. I agree with JB. I'll say they cover. I think they're pissed. Like, when you get beat down by almost 40 points, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, but when you suck, you can't do much about it.
To somebody as bad as Tennessee, yeah, that's even more embarrassing. And to look up after being knocked down and look up, see that ugly orange in front of you, it's just ugh.
I mean, talk about being sick. Like,
Yeah, right. Oh man.
I'd rather. Good grief.
Better chance of surviving COVID than the embarrassment of losing to Tennessee.
or having to stare right into their jerseys. These are so bright. Anyway, Alabama goes on the road to play A&M and are 17.5-point favorite. What do y'all think?
Give me Bama and
all
the
day.
points.
Yeah, all day.
I agree. All right, that was an easy. That's good. Georgia goes on the road to Auburn and is a 14.5-point favorite. JB, what you think?
My guy that works with me, who's a big Auburn fan, he said he was talking about how he was listening to the radio, and they were talking about how Georgia's going to have their hands full with Auburn, and even he was like, "What are they smoking to think that Georgia's going to have their hands full with Auburn?" Like, first of all, we don't know which Bo Nix is going to show up.
That's right.
And even if the good one shows up, he may just show up for a half. So, a half of a game's not going to be enough to beat Georgia. So, like, yeah, give me Georgia all day, man. Like, Georgia goes into the Plains. They take care of business. They covered the 14.5-point spread. Auburn is not what LSU thinks they are, because LSU's not that good either. Just saying. Move on.
Yeah, I think Georgia wins. I also think they're going to cover, but I think Auburn is going to put up more points on Georgia than they've had in any single game this season. South Carolina put, 13 on the board? I think Auburn will get to 14, maybe even 17, but Georgia's going to score just way too many points to make it close.
Well, here's the deal. I don't know if y'all listened to last week's cast, but I straight up went after Harsin for firing their wide receiver coach after 4 games, because to me, that's the sign of a guy who's not going to make it at the SEC level. And Pruitt did the same thing with, I believe it was his defensive coordinator at Tennessee. I I said when Harrison got fired, I didn't think he was going to make it in the SEC. I stand by that wholeheartedly. I just don't think he's got chops. And I don't think Auburn's that good. Like, here's the thing. Bo Nix is predicated on the fact that he can run. If KJ Jefferson can't run on Georgia, the heck if Bo Nix can. Bo Nix is terrible when he gets pressure.
Mm-hmm.
How many hurries and sacks is Georgia getting? We're going to be putting pressure on them all day. This ain't going to be pretty, fellas.
Yeah.
Georgia covers easily.
Yeah,
I heard a prediction today that Georgia blanks Auburn and doesn't let them score. Honestly, after the last week, I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas can't score in Georgia. Why should Auburn be able to? The only reason I see Auburn doing anything is for the mere fact that it's the Deep South oldest rivalry, and they put up a fight.
Yeah.
But it's still not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is in the plains too, so crazy things happen down there.
Yeah.
Although, historically, in the last 10, 20 years, Georgia's played better in the plains against Auburn than Athens.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
I'm curious as to your thoughts as a Georgia fan. Do you think Smart's going to have a defensive game plan for both quarterbacks, or is he going to? Is this going to be a situation where if Bo's not performing, they can take him out after halftime, and you see kind of an offensive resurgence in the second half, or mix it up and Bo Nix doesn't get the start and come out and do something early on?
I mean, honestly, like I don't know the answer to that specifically, but I just think Georgia's shown their defense is prepared for whatever right now. Like,
so they're ready to play a backup quarterback for once.
If it were Alabama's backup quarterback, I'd probably say no. I don't think Finley's good enough to make a difference.
I had to set that one up. That's all.
No, I mean that's fair. Like, I guess honestly, when Arkansas's backup quarterback came in, for a second I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And, start scoring. I'm not gonna lie, but as much as I think T.J. Finley's a better quarterback than Bo Nix, I don't think either one of them is going to make much of a difference against Georgia. I just don't think either one of them was that talented. Bo Nix is a good athlete, but under pressure, he's absolutely terrible. And I don't think JT's going to play this Saturday, so that could play into our offense a little bit. I don't think they're going to really put a stop to us, especially if we get, there's a potential we'll have Blaylock back. Potential Darnell Washington will play. He played a little bit last week, but was limited. I think. And then, I don't remember two of our other receivers that may get to play as well. Arian Smith, one of them, who's a speed demon. And I don't remember who else, but if we start getting guys back, our offense is going to keep picking up. So.
Yeah.
I appreciate the love for KJ, by the way.
Dude, KJ's really talented.
Yeah.
Like I said, I still believe in Arkansas.
I don't know what happened, man. Like, Georgia's a good team, but I think, I don't know. I think mentally, KJ, I don't think he's mentally prepared to be the guy at this level. At least not now.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but I think he can.
Because I think he shut down the Georgia game. He shut down the first half of the Rice game, and I guess Pittman and his crew rattled something in him, and he came out playing stronger. But he's been playing better every single week, and I think with Georgia it was just like I said, deer in the headlights. I think he's talented. I think he's more talented than Bo Nix, period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Georgia just this year gets more pressure on track than they have in I don't know how many years. That front seven is just nasty. We have a really good pass rush. So I think that's just the difference, honestly. I don't take anything away from Jefferson.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be really good in the future. All right. Next, we have LSU traveling to Kroger Field in Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky is favored by 3.
What's Kroger's tagline? Count on us. Yeah, you can count on Kentucky winning this game and covering that 3-point spread. Come on, man. They're worlds better than LSU. Like,
Come on, man.
it's not even close. Like, it may be a close game, but I don't think there's any doubt that Kentucky's the better team than LSU. Like, this is
Unless the
pathetic.
bluegrass happens again, then yeah.
Yeah. So, like,
Wes?
Man, I'm looking not just at this game, but after the loss against Auburn last week, you've got Kentucky this week, then Florida, then Ole Miss, then a bye, then Alabama, then Arkansas. I think LSU might legitimately be looking at a 6-game losing streak in the conference, and you're going to start to see Chiswick levels of unrest in Baton Rouge, and that's going to start with probably a 2 to 3 touchdown drubbing at the hands of Kentucky at home this week. These guys are going to be ready to play, ready to get psyched up and to challenge Georgia for the East, and LSU is not going to stand in their way.
No, and I think if you think about Kentucky mentally right now, as little as they've beaten Florida over the last 35 years, they are absolutely jacked right now.
mm-hmm.
Like, they could not be more jacked up. Mentally, they are like ready to go face anybody. Yeah, I think they win. That spread is ridiculous. Easily cover that. Like, I could see Kentucky winning by 10 or more points potentially. Just depends on if they limit their turnovers.
You know what's funny is we had this conversation a couple weeks ago. Who's the most who's the worst national championship winning coach between Gene Chizik and Ed Orgeron? And we kind of debated back and forth to that. And dude, Ed Orgeron is looking at having the exact same thing happen to him 2 years after winning the national championship. You know, winning 3 or 4 games. Like, it could legitimately happen. Yeah. Like, they've got ULM as the only surefire win this for the rest of the way, and even that, you know, could go either way.
Another 7 overtime game against A&M to end the season, and he might be gone.
Seriously, man.
Here's what I'll say about Chizik: those that can't do, he ain't coaching anymore. So we'll just say that about Chizik.
One thing you can say about Chizik, he is a fantastic analyst.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's not coaching.
That's right.
At least Edo is for now. But I do think it's funny. The topic has been thrown around about LSU firing Edo and going to get Joe Brady to come back to be the head coach. That'd be scary.
That'd be a mistake.
Ooh.
I don't think so. That'd be a mistake it might be a mistake for Joe. Right. But, just kidding.
Now they're going to go for Urban Meyer. They're going to bring him back to the SEC. he's pulling the Saban technique, right? He flames out in the NFL spectacularly and then comes and rebuilds a once strong college football team. Except he's crashing harder so that he can win better.
Oh my goodness. Or he'll go to USC and ruin his career, never be good again. But
I don't know. Worked for Lane Kiffin.
Hey, Alabama owes everything to Nick Saban going to the NFL and bombing out, because if he hadn't had done that, he'd probably still be at LSU right now.
Hey man, he's the best coach to ever lose to UAB.
right, let's move on to the final game. Arkansas travels to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored by 6 points at home. Wes.
Oh, why are you gonna put that on me first? I wanted JB to talk about Arkansas so I can make up my mind.
Well,
Oh.
being that it's his team, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, two teams that lost in high profile games last week. One of them wants to stop the bleeding. The other one, neither one of them want to start a losing streak after being either in the top 10 or so close to it. I think because Ole Miss is the home team, I want to go them, but I like Sam Pittman, and I don't trust Lane Kiffin not to do something stupid like the popcorn comment before the Bama game. Whatever strategy they had for that game blew up as soon as they missed the first 4th down conversion, and it's like they never recovered. I see Arkansas as a more stable team. That they got shut down by a superior Georgia team, but I think Arkansas is better than what we saw last Saturday, and I think they have a better chance of rebounding this week than Ole Miss does. So let's get Arkansas, and maybe, depending on how things shake out, maybe they sneak back into the top 10 after this week.
Great pick. Listen, I'm not going to pick against Arkansas, but it's not necessarily because I'm a homer. Yes, I am a homer, but I'm with you. Like, I trust Sam Pittman a heck of Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is a great offensive minded coach. He's innovative. He's going to score points. The thing is, Ole Miss doesn't have a defense. Like, it's really bad. Like, it's sad is what it is. And like you said, Arkansas is the more stable team. I trust them to bounce back a heck of a lot better from last week, going into this week. And I like the fact that, like I said earlier, Ole Miss plays to our strengths on defense, how they like to air it out. And, we're running a 3-3-5, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it against us. So, yeah, they'll score some points, but they won't like they want to. So I like Arkansas in this game. I think we bounce back, and and I could see us sneaking into the top 10, just like you said. Depending on what happens, I think right now with the rankings, they're just kind of like in wait and see mode with a lot of people. The fact that we're still ranked ahead of Ole Miss after getting shut out last week makes me happy. So at least the voters still like us. I think that game against Georgia has nothing to do with how good Arkansas is.
Agreed.
Well, I agree with that statement because I said it earlier. but
Got to take credit for it.
Of course. Naturally. You throw the ball naturally.
Yeah. No, you throw the ball to who?
Who's on second? No, who's on first?
No.
Gosh.
No. I was honestly going to pick Ole Miss to win this, but just as I'm thinking about it, I do agree with what y'all are saying, but I also think that, look, okay, as much as I believe this has nothing to do with Lane Kiffin, I believe in Matt Corral. I think he is a great quarterback. However, last year, Arkansas, with the team that they had, forced him into, 6 interceptions?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to give him fits again, but I think this year is going to be enough to win the game. So I think they're going to win outright, and I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. But I think that 3-3-5 is what is going to do what it couldn't do against Georgia. I think it's going to give them fits. I think that Ole Miss will have some ability to run the ball, but they're not going to get those down the field passes. And I think that's the difference in the game.
Yeah.
So I'll take Arkansas.
Yeah, and we actually did beat Ole Miss last year too. So
I was about to say,
You did? Okay.
I thought they
Okay.
did.
I
Yeah.
couldn't remember. Sorry. That's my bad.
yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, yeah. All right, 3 picks for Arkansas. Good day.
Mm.
Well, that was fun. We covered a lot of ground. I think we went for about an hour and 15 minutes, and yeah, so appreciate having everybody on here. The guest, Mr. Wes Mewborn.
Thank you.
And as always, Rob, who is here more than I am nowadays. Kinda. I did my own show last week, so I'm still here at the same amount. So
Your own
You went
show.
rogue.
I went. Did you not know about that, Wes? Yeah, I did my own show.
Listen, I don't pay
That's
attention to
why
you.
he couldn't do. He only gets one day a week to do a show because, you know. So
He's freelancing.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna be completely honest. When we were 4-0 and in the ranked in the top 10, I was thinking, you know what? I've been on Arkansas to know that this might not last. So we beat Texas. We beat Texas A&M. So I want to have a show where I get 3 other Arkansas fans on, and we discuss everything right now when everything is wonderful and happy, and because history shows that it doesn't last long. So that's why I did that last week, because
Treat yourself.
I don't know. Treat yourself.
treat
Exactly.
yourself.
Exactly.
That was good. It
Well-
was a fun conversation too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anyway, that's it for today. Just remember, brothers, to let your light shine before men so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. And we'll see you in the tavern.